Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott MacKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
Well, hello there. Thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk, and thank you for your continued support. It is because of your support that you've made Industrial Talk the number one industrial-related podcast in the universe. And it celebrates you. You are at the center of what Industrial Talk is all about. You're a leader. You're solving problems each and every day. That's why Industrial Talk is here, and 2025 is going to be incredible. All that innovation, all that technology, all the solutions in manufacturing, oil and gas, power, reliability, you name it, it's happening in 2025. In the hot seat, we have a gentleman by the name of Preston Johnson. Cutsforth is the company. We're going to be talking about asset management, but their platform and how it's important that you manage those assets, see the information, tactical action associated with it. We want you to succeed. Therefore, we're going to constantly highlight companies that are passionate about your success. So let's get cracking. 2024 in the books. We interviewed so many individuals. We had such a great year. And it's because of you. I can't even imagine. We were averaging about four a week of just leaders. So do the math on that. And every single one was just spectacular. We visited and broadcast on site all the time, the whole year. We were all around the world being able to do that. And it's because of your support. It's because of you. And we just truly appreciate all that in 2024. Now, 2025, still new, right here. I'm here to tell you that you need to succeed. And a part of that success has to be about you doing a podcast, you either creating one, telling your story, whatever it might be. You need to be able to amplify your message. Industrial Talk is here for you. If you have a podcast, I say it all the time, if you have a podcast, put it out on Industrial Talk. It's a platform, an industrial platform for that conversation. It is an open platform. Secondly, if you have technology that you so desire to just share and share the screen and share the solutions and be able to do it it's just there. Just say, hey, check this out. You need to put it out on Industrial Talk. We want to promote you. We want to amplify that message that you have. It's important because we here at Industrial Talk want everybody to succeed. We have to succeed. We're at a renaissance right now, and I'm just absolutely bullish about what's going to be taking place in the coming years. And we want you to be successful. And then finally, let's just say, I have something to say. I have something to tell you. I have something to share. And you're saying to yourself, well, how do I do that? Because I want to be able to do it in a verbal form. Well, Industrial Talk, again, is here for you. You just go out to Industrial Talk. It's easy. Go there, click on connect. You'll be talking to me. I keep the bench shallow. I don't add any additional fluff or confusion. It's me. The Industrial Talk team wants you to succeed, and we're here for you. You need to do it. 2025, 2026. Make this a year of you telling your story in a fun and an entertaining way. There. I said it. All right. On to the conversation. We're talking asset management. We're talking about a platform that is specific and that is designed to be able to monitor those assets, get that information, notify, do all of the stuff, and there it is. You go out on the video, you can see it and all that good stuff. Cutsforth is the company The gentleman's name is Preston Johnson. Enjoy the chat. Preston, welcome to Industrial Talk. How are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. It's a pleasure to be here, Scott.
Absolutely wonderful that you are here. You're talking to some of the best listeners on the face of the earth, all around the world right now. So I hear the weather is nice in Central Texas right now.
It is starting to cool off, but we're still running our air conditioners.
Yeah, we're too here in Louisiana, southeast Louisiana. Yeah. Do you get snow where you live?
Only during odd years.
Yeah.
And when that happens, we sometimes lose a lot of power.
Well, yeah, because you're part of ERCOT.
Well, it has its pros and its cons.
It has its pros and cons. Well handled, Preston, on that. All right, listeners, we're going to be talking a little bit about holistic equipment condition monitoring and performance predictive maintenance solutions. That's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get into that conversation, Preston, give us a little background on who you are and a little background on Cutsforth.
Certainly. So I've been in the industrial instrumentation business for well over 30 years now. I cut my teeth with a little startup here in Austin, Texas, that's now owned by Emerson, National Instruments. During my tenure at National Instruments, I got very excited about condition monitoring and predictive maintenance and started my journey in really the turn of the millennium in the year 2000. Where we started putting together condition monitoring, factory acceptance test products, working with OEMs, and delivering products through systems integrators to build customized solutions. And many of those integrators are still in business with their customized solutions based off of the products that we brought to market during the early 2000s. Along the way, Cutsforth got involved with some of the National Instruments products, and in 2022, after they'd been working in the power generation generator support business, they purchased the software that we brought to market called Insight CM. And they made that purchase in 2022. The software had already been on the market since 2013. And so Cutsforth has expanded its business from generator support with shaft grounding systems and brush exciter systems to more of a predictive maintenance condition monitoring platform, leveraging that Insight CM software. I'll tell you a little bit of a story about how that all came together as we get into the conversation.
Please do, because I have some questions about the Insight CM and the market out there. Continue.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been with Cutsforth about 3 months now. Prior to that, I worked with a small artificial intelligence company that was trying to, is still working very successfully adding artificial intelligence to predictive maintenance. Spent a little time with an information technology systems integrator that was involved with something called Refinery of the Future, where I learned a little bit about the IT-OT convergence.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, I was with a reliability services company by the name of Allied Reliability, where I picked up the metrics and the KPIs and got my CMRP from SMRP. And so I've had a fun journey in this condition monitoring and predictive maintenance, starting with technology, learning the business, trying to understand the challenges of implementing fleet-wide monitoring applications. And ultimately, I'm back with my team that I started with as we try to roll all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, you've seen a lot of changes happening within the marketplace. I mean, it has changed, and it's changing even more rapidly, I would say, because of the advent of AI and the ability to be able to have greater insights into those assets and be able to sort of have tactical action items to say, go here, do this, this is what's happening. So very interesting. All right. It's noisy out there, just FYI. It's noisy in the world of asset management systems, condition monitoring systems. How does the Insight CM, how does that differ from some of the other products out there?
Well, the first vision that we had for Insight CM when we started putting the software together was partly an internal vision. being able to leverage and utilize all the different condition monitoring technologies. Many of the asset management softwares that came about in the 80s and 90s were really focused on vibration, more or less. And when you looked at the market, the vibration condition monitoring market was much larger than oil sampling, electrical signature analysis, thermography. And it really was the major focus of many of those applications. We also took the voice of the customer. One of the largest southeastern power generation companies in North America really wanted to be able to leverage all of the technologies. And as they looked for a way to do a fleet-wide condition monitoring, not only of their critical assets, their turbine generators and so forth, they really wanted to be able to do more balance of plant, and they needed to leverage multiple technologies. So that's one of the unique features of Insight CM, is being able to digitize all of the condition monitoring technologies that are in play today, bring them together into a single platform, which makes it easier to compare trends from the vibration, from the lubrication, from the temperature, thermography, and so forth, to collaborate amongst the technologies and identify defects in the equipment.
So take us through that. Let's say I'm interested. I hear what you're saying. I'm having a common platform that really will be able to provide the insights that I need for my management of assets. Take us through sort of a typical implementation of that solution. If I say, "Hey, Preston, help me," what are those steps?
Yeah, so the first thing is I want to understand the assets that you have in your plant that are important that you want to address. Sometimes those are bad actors. Sometimes we start at the top of the criticality list. Sometimes we might start with balance of plant just to make sure that this technology is really going to work before we put it on critical assets. So we need to understand the assets. What are the nameplates? What's the function of the asset? So functional failure is really failure, and that's what we're trying to prevent. So we need to understand what the asset's doing, what are the components, and the likely and probable failure modes that we might experience. Subject matter experts understand that bearings wear, that lubrication loses viscosity, that there's electrical faults in motors, that pumps have cavitation and vane issues. Same thing with fans; they get debris on them. There's a laundry list of failure modes that subject matter experts understand. And so we want to address those likely and probable failure modes, be able to detect the defects that lead to those failure modes, so that we have plenty of time to plan and schedule mitigating action. So
I hate to interrupt real quick, but you're talking to the individuals that are on the ground and talking about those assets in a pretty extensive way. I would imagine that each client is different in how they approach their assets. How long does that understanding phase take?
Usually it's a matter for Cutsforth, for our team to understand the assets and how they're being used in a plant, probably within a week or two. Just a few man hours till we understand what are the assets. We have our own subject matter experts to say, oh, this is a centrifugal pump. It's horizontally mounted. It's got it's directly coupled. This is what we can expect from this size based on horsepower and flow and pressure.
That ain't bad. That's cool. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So and then we also, so once we understand the failure modes, and then we need to identify sensors that can detect the defects. Yeah. So vibration, lubrication, electrical signature, thermography, ultrasound, performance, pressures and flows. What is the work that the equipment is actually doing? Because we can monitor those and get some context on how the pump is being operated, especially if there's multiple operating conditions that the equipment is going to be experiencing. How does it change operating states and so forth? So we bring all that together, try to understand what sensors are valuable to understand the performance and defects in the equipment that are going to cause failure.
So you're agnostic to the sensor themselves. You can pretty much interact with those sensors that are out in the field, your DCS, your PLCs, and then your other devices that are, might be placed on these assets, right? You're able to do that.
That is correct. And so from a business perspective, Cutsforth is essentially a software and a services company. And so we work with sensors that are available on the market. There's a number of wireless sensors. We're working to integrate more and more of those vendors into our platform. And then there's several data acquisition systems that are permanently wired that we can typically connect into one way or another. So now you have all this data.
Yeah.
And a lot of the data is complex. A vibration signature, you can think of an orchestra if you've ever been to this symphony, and you hear all kinds of sounds. How do you break those up and map them to the parts that are going to fail?
Yeah, if you were me, you just sort of give up because it's extensive.
But if you've been through vibration training or thermography training or oral analysis training, you understand what the parameters that you want to calculate off of that sample of data that map to the kinds of failures that you might actually see in the equipment. And so there's some analytics right there on the front end that break apart those dense data sets into trendable features that you can track and trend over time. But they're also indicative of a failure type, a bearing interrace fault, loss of viscosity in lubrication. Maybe there's some humidity in the oil, the chemicals changing in the lubrication, and so forth. Those are all indicative of a defect that's developing within the equipment. And typically, the analytics can bring it down to a particular part in the equipment that is suffering from that particular defect. So if we understand the lubrication is losing viscosity, the bearing is starting to make some tones, we now have maybe even a cause for why that bearing is fatiguing if the lubrication is starting to show failures or degradation, and then the bearing's starting to show up. We know that we have a lubrication issue that's causing a bearing failure. We might be able to correct the lubrication problem before the bearing wears and extend the life of our equipment. Whereas with just vibration, you might not understand the cause of the bearing. You just know that it's wearing and it's getting worse. And you may replace the bearing, but you might not have addressed the root cause.
So with that analogy, if I have an asset and I'm pulling vibration, I'm pulling sound, ultrasonic, maybe some heat. Do you normalize that data on that asset in your system, saying, okay, here is the complete picture of that motor, whatever it might be?
Right.
And then be able to sort of green, yellow, red it, from a that perspective. Is that what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about, is being able to put some indicators out of all of the equipment that are in scope for the online condition monitoring, which ones have no defects detected. They're all green. Which ones have defects that we can see developing, but the alert levels are still kind of low. I see the bearing starting to make noise, but it's at a small enough level that I probably wouldn't write a work request by itself. Now, maybe if the lubrication and the temperature and the ultrasound are all telling me something, then that might give me enough evidence to actually write a work request to do some mitigating action. But yes, so we indicate the equipment in the equipment hierarchy in the software is yellow. We're detecting defects, and then we would probably go to an orange or a red, depending as the severity increases over time, which really means that your time to plan and schedule your mitigating action is starting to decrease.
Does it provide some sort of indication of, or predictive indication of when they might think about failure? So in the case of this yellow asset, over a period of time, hey, it's still okay, but we see it's failing at this rate. Do you have that capabilities?
That capability is coming. And what's really interesting is that the best kind of the term I call prognostics, how much remaining useful life, remaining functional capability do I have out of this equipment before it fails to perform its function? We would call that prognostics. And there's really two pieces of that puzzle. And what I've been describing earlier is really the physics of failure. So physics-based models that all of us subject matter experts can understand, we can explain. We've been trained on them. We know what the alert levels are for the various sizes of machines and components that we're trying to monitor. So those physics-based models, through the technologies and the training that the subject matter experts have been through, really form the basis of understanding, do we have a defect, and is that defect getting more and more severe over time? Now, the tricky part is, can we predict the future? If we think of the P to F curve, and I'll draw mine the way I look at it, where the equipment is normal and healthy at the top of the curve, and it starts to degrade down till the functional failure, and I'm maybe a third of the way down that curve. How do I predict that trajectory, which is nonlinear?
It's not.
And so if I have multiple signals, multiple sensors that are each sort of saying, yeah, I can see a little bit of a change that's not good, but it's small, we can normalize, as you say, bring that data together through some, I'll call it advanced statistics, all part of that artificial intelligence portfolio that could start to give me a curve structure, especially if the knowledge is there on how that particular type of equipment tends to degrade with similar failure modes in play over time. And then we have an opportunity to traject that P to F curve for that piece of equipment for that particular failure mode into the future. And that tells us, can we make it to the next outage? There are several companies trying to do that. Some of them claim that they're having great success. Some of them aren't using physics-based models. They're all doing data-driven, so you really have to have years of failure data. So there's a number of different plays, and actually that's really exciting part of the work that we're doing at Cutsforth is building in that direction, starting with the physics-based models. Those are explainable, those are understandable, and working with our artificial intelligence teams to try to project that P to F curve for that.
Yeah, that's sort of that's the Shangri-La of asset management. If I have a high confidence level of being able to predict when that particular asset will fail, then I can plan it in a better way. I can hopefully sweat it a little bit. I feel comfortable with sweating that asset, pushing it out a little bit. It has real bottom line financial benefits if I knew how to do that.
Yeah, it really does. And I call that supply chain optimization.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't have to express parts and people into my plant to fix something now. I can plan and schedule and get things on everybody's calendar, including my suppliers. And everybody goes home feeling comfortable.
I agree with you 100%. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. My studio has my dog, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's real world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, with all that said, with all that wonderful reality that exists, where do you see it going, and what are the roadblocks?
Yeah, so really the first roadblock that most of our clients and prospects actually have is, how do I get started? This sounds great. Yes, we're having failures that are catching us off guard. Yes, we have some route-based subject matter experts that inspect our equipment from time to time. We're catching some, we're not catching them all. How can I build a business case, a business justification to be able to justify putting sensors in where we're continuously monitoring at least once a day, in the case of wireless sensors, these parameters that can detect those defects? And one of the initial benefits to most organization is just workforce optimization. So if you think about the subject matter experts that spend all day or 4 days a week in a typical fashion of walking around the plant with their handheld analyzer for just one technology, typically, making measurements on equipment, inspecting perfectly good equipment, finding a few pieces of defects that they identify, but then they only spend 20% of their time that one day a week actually doing analytics, and they're in essentially a data silo. So they're not able to bring that data together. So you have workforce optimization if you can take some of those machines off route and put them online. Now that analyst, that subject matter expert can spend time not collecting the data, but spending more time looking at the data and learning from the data. So that's a workforce optimization that comes into play. But ultimately, you're looking at, can I increase the uptime of the equipment before I actually have to pull it offline and service it? Can I lower my maintenance costs if I catch and plan and schedule and mitigate problems before they get worse? They typically cost less and equipment that does not have defects, that is running smooth, typically consumes less energy and less natural resources. OSHA would tell you that unreliable equipment is unsafe equipment. And yes, I have been in plants where machines throw parts. Kind of scary.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't want that to happen. Those become real safety issues. So there's a number of objective and subjective business benefits at the higher level. And then if you look at organizations like the Society of Maintenance Reliability professionals or Reliability Web and other organizations, they'll all tell you there's even other metrics that you can measure that may not bubble up into the financial system, but certainly help you understand how your workforce is adding value to the operation of your plant as you start to move some of the metrics and KPIs from the business of condition monitoring and predictive maintenance and asset management.
And final question. What are the roadblocks? It makes sense. And I think that if you're a company, especially today, that you're not actively and aggressively seeking optimization of your business through greater insights into your assets, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be competitively disadvantaged. What's the roadblock?
Well, yeah, so there's a kind of a number of roadblocks. Well, first and foremost, not all companies have the resources in their employment that they actually need to make this transition from route-based or nothing at all to an online monitoring system. So you need not only the subject matter experts for the technologies that you're going to deploy, but you also need information technologists, because this software has to run on a computer on-premise or in the cloud. And then you've got the security and the IT/OT convergence issues. So you need subject matter experts, you need information technologists, you need an integration effort, and that may come from your IT team. I want to take my data from my InsightCM software and make a message out of it when it sees a problem that I can transfer into my maintenance management system to essentially start a work request so that the planners and schedulers and subject matter experts can figure out what to do with this developing defect and when they're going to do that. You also need leadership. The leadership has to buy in to the benefit the organization, and certainly we're all caught up in this artificial intelligence hype, you might call it, but there's a lot of good things that we're getting out of artificial intelligence today. So we have to understand that we're going to be able to leverage those technologies going forward, and we need that foundation of good, solid data based on physics and the way our plant runs and the way our people and our process work together. So we need leadership to help us bring those efforts together. And then, of course, operations. They're the ones that are running the plant and making productions. You have to serve the operations team in order to allow them to increase the capacity of the plant by keeping their equipment healthy and available.
Excellent. Well done. Well summarized. Preston, how do they get a hold of you? If somebody's saying, I'm enjoying what Preston is saying, I want to know more, what's the best way of being able to get a hold of you?
Email at my current employer, preston.johnson@Cutsforth, CUTSFORTH.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
My slash is Preston Todd Johnson, all run together.
There you go. Well, you were absolutely wonderful. Thank you. We're going to have all the contact information for Preston out on Industrial Talk. You can contact him. He knows what he's talking about. As you can tell by the conversation, he's got mad skills. You were great, Preston.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. It's been very much a pleasure. I appreciate the intriguing questions that you brought forth today, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, well, thank you very much. All right, listeners, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. We're going to have, again, all the contact information for Preston out on Industrial Talk. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Preston Johnson, Cutsforth, the company. We've been talking about asset management, as you can tell. Thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk. I say it all the time because it's you. We truly appreciate your support. And it's 2025, so let's make it another great year. Let's you and I talk. It's easy. You just go out to Industrial Talk. You click on Connect. You'll be talking to me. I'm sort of warm and fuzzy. I don't offend. And let's have a conversation. You have a podcast? Yes. Talk to me. If you have technology, you need to talk to me. We need to get that message out there. And and if you just want to have a conversation, go to Industrial Talk. Talk to me. You can tell there's a lot of talking going on there. All right. That was a great conversation. Let's make 2025 a great year. Be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Preston. Change the world. We're going to have a ton of conversations coming in 2025, so stay tuned.